Hey guys, Money with Yumi here, where I talk about anything and everything related to money and how to grow your wealth. It's been a while since I last reacted to a video, so today we're going to react to this video by Asian Boss titled Are All Singaporeans Rich? And I'm also going to share with you my thoughts on how much one would need to survive in Singapore. So, let's begin.
Hey bosses, it's Alana from Asian Boss. Did you know that Singapore currently shares the title of the world's most expensive city with New York? In fact, it consistently ranks as one of the world's most expensive places to live.
Yep, according to the EIU, the Economist Intelligence Unit survey, Singapore is the most expensive city in the world, tied with New York, and Hong Kong and LA are at number 4.
With the highest car prices and being one of the most costly places to shop for clothes. But what is life like in such an expensive city, and how are Singaporeans coping with the rising global inflation rates? We hit the streets of Singapore to find out. So today we're curious to find out how much it costs to live in Singapore. So what do you do for a living, if you don't mind?
I'm a student. I'm a media executive.
And how much do you earn roughly per month, if you don't mind, in SGD?
About $3,000.
$3,000 for a media executive? I thought executives make a lot more money than $3,000. I got a job offer right after my diploma for like $3,000, but I didn't take it. It was too low.
2.8k to 3k Singapore dollar. Private hire driver and freelancer.
I'm a brand manager of a restaurant.
How much roughly do you make in Singapore dollars per month?
Below 4,000.
Brand manager at a restaurant making less than $4,000? I guess it depends on what kind of restaurant, but it kind of feels that he's being underpaid. Or maybe it's just a fancy title. I don't know.
And would you say that what you make is considered average in Singapore?
I would say just enough to survive.
$4,000. I don't think I can survive in Singapore.
About 5 to 6,000. I'm a business executive in one of the food company in Singapore.
Yeah, 5,000 to 6,000 seems more average to me, especially for millennials and Gen Z, especially from what I've heard.
Probably above 5k. Yeah.
So do you think that is average of what Singaporeans usually make?
I think probably slightly above average. Slightly above, yeah.
I would say not a lot. It was probably around 6,000. Like my friends and all, they make quite a lot of money, but I do feel a bit downgraded sometimes, but it's okay, because really 5,000 is all you need as a Singaporean.
Okay, so if you make 6,000, would you say that that's average or above or below average?
I'm pretty sure it's average because most of Singaporeans living in Singapore, they earn about 5,000, and if you want to start a family and stuff, I think you might need 10 grand if I'm not wrong.
I definitely do agree with this guy here. I think you can live comfortably in Singapore with at least a $5,000 salary if you're living with your parents. But if you have a family, I think it's probably closer to 7 to 10k.
I'm a software engineer at a Chinese tech company. If we take this latest statistics of median salary in Singapore, so I'm around 20%, 30% above that number.
Hold up. What's the median salary in Singapore? Let's take a look. According to the latest data, the median salary is $5,070 in 2022. So 30% of $5,070 is $6,591. That's actually not bad if he was a local, but he seems like he's an expat, so I'm assuming that he would be making more than $7,000 a month, especially he has to rent, so part of that's going to go to rent.
So Singapore is actually known as the country with the highest salary in Asia. So for the people outside of Singapore, it may seem like everybody is doing very well in Singapore and they don't really struggle financially. Do you think this is true, or do people still struggle to get by in Singapore?
It's a struggle to get by in Singapore. It isn't true. It isn't as what it seems.
I think it's true that they have these stereotypes. For example, I have international friends that think that Singapore is rich, but personally, it's not true because there are a lot of Singaporeans that are basically struggling in terms of finance.
Isn't that the case for most countries though? I mean, look at Hong Kong, China, and the US. There's a huge income gap between the rich and the poor.
People are still struggling because the work done is so much that they need to do in order to get that amount of money or amount of like expensive that they need to do.
I'm so confused by this comment. Do you mean you want to get paid for slacking?
People think of Singapore as a safe and stable country, and I think that's fair, but that still does not discount a lot of the challenges that many people face. I think people kind of feel the pressures of inflation nowadays. So like if your friends ask you to eat out, you'll be like, don't wanna.
I definitely do agree with this guy here. It's not just about the pressure of inflation, but it's also the pressure of keeping up. Like a bubble tea costs $5. If you're making less than $3,000 a month, you shouldn't even be drinking that or Starbucks or Coffee Bean, etc. No. Because if it were me, I would be drinking water or I'll make my own drink. That's just the reality.
Even though the average is quite high, but the disparity between the highest and the lowest is still quite disproportionate. So I would say the inequality or the income inequality is still quite significant. Like the cost of living is obviously going up, and as a result, I think those people who are on the lower end of the income bracket, they will find it naturally more difficult to get by day to day.
I definitely do agree with this gentleman here as well. However, if you take a look at the 2019 Gini coefficient list, where it measures how equal a country's distribution of income is, Singapore's not even in the top 30, and we're doing better than the US.
Singapore is also consistently ranked as one of the most expensive cities in the world. Can you give us some examples of what is considered expensive compared to maybe some other Asian cities? Everything is expensive.
Hold up. Not everything is expensive. We all know that Singapore has limited land, so naturally things like real estate and cars are going to cost more. But things like healthcare, education, food, public transport, taxes are relatively low. So things that I would consider basic necessities are still pretty much affordable.
I would say your cars, housing, food. I think food is also rising in comparison. I would say in comparison to the Southeast Asia markets around us.
For example, my parents, they will laugh at me when I tell them I have like $8 lattes, for example, which I just did, by the way. Like I just came from a cafe and I had an $8 latte, for example.
$8 lattes? Oh my god, I don't even do that, bro. I'm too poor for that.
Alcohol, for example, it's heavily taxed here, so buying alcohol in supermarkets is expensive, but even more expensive just drinking out. In comparison, like bottle of wine, like that would cost like in Spain like around 10 euro, would cost here like around 30 Singapore dollars, like twice almost expensive, right? Getting that wine like in a bar and restaurant would get you like around $50, $60, yeah. Depending on the like how posh that place is, right?
Oh gosh, I don't even want to drink in Singapore, guys. The prices are exorbitant. You have to pay to get into the club, you have to pay to buy drinks, and then you're gonna puke it all out in the end anyway, and then you're gonna pay to grab a cab to go home. That's easily $200 a night. You know, I've been there, done that. I'm past that stage right now, so no thanks.
How about how much it costs to rent a house?
To rent a house, I think it could easily be 3 to 4 per month. Yeah. I think I've heard of some areas where like even a one-room flat is, or even just one room can cost up to 1,000 or 2,000. So I mean that's quite high.
For me right now, my rent is like 1.8k.
If you're looking at a really central area, I think it can go up to 5-6k just to rent one bedroom condo in Singapore itself.
That's a little too high. 5 to 6k is probably something like brand new. But if you're looking at a one-bedroom condo in Orchard area, it's about like 3.5 to 5k. So just a little bit too high.
For yourself personally, do you rent or do you buy?
I'm currently staying still with my parents, like most Singaporeans do. Yeah, so technically most of the costs are still bared by my parents lah. So I'm fortunate in that way lah.
I think that's still one of the best perks living in Singapore, to be able to live rent-free with your parents.
I heard the couple next door was like paying like $4,000 for the entire unit. That's like crazy expensive. So, and I mean even single rooms now you book, you try to rent, it's like 1,000 plus. So that's like for someone who's maybe having $2,000-$3,000, your rental is gonna cost like $1,000. That's like crazy. Like 30% just goes to rental. It's crazy.
My friends were telling me that after COVID, the rent increased by a lot, and they are easily expecting maybe like 40% of their monthly income to be going towards rent.
Yeah, in the US, people are forced to move to where the jobs are, so it's very common for people to spend 30 to 40% off their paycheck every month for rent, and that's before taxes.
So apart from a house, usually people also expect to buy a car, right? So buying a car in Singapore is really expensive. So can you explain how much roughly it costs and why is it so expensive?
Buying a car involves many things. I think you have to buy the physical car, which is for a new car, I think like what, $100,000. You have to get a COE, Certificate of Entitlement, which is it's basically like a document that you get to drive a car in Singapore. And then that's excluding like road tax, insurance, petrol, maintenance, yeah, all those things. So I know one friend who got a car and then regretted it. So she sold it in the end.
If you don't have kids, the best is still the public transport. You don't have to worry about things like parking, paying for the parking, road tax, insurance, petrol, car depreciation, which is a huge thing, by the way, so you're saving a bunch of money.
So I think it's about 200,000 total to own that car.
I think it's expensive as well because, like I said, Singapore land is small, so they also try to limit the number of cars that actually can run around Singapore lah. I mean, it's good for the traffic. Probably the government wanted to limit the number of cars that really can run around Singapore. I mean, it helps in terms of the carbon emission and all. I think they are encouraging like Singaporeans to really take the public transport lah, to really reduce the carbon emission in Singapore.
When I was in Singapore earlier this year, I didn't drive or take the cab. I relied mostly on the MRT, which I still think is the best.
In the whole world, we have a lot of high inflation now because of all the global events that happen. How are you personally affected by the current economic condition, like high inflation?
Like last time I will eat out outside, but now I will cut down to eat out outside. I will cook at home.
I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's actually cheaper to eat out than to cook at home because time is money. But yes, everything has gotten more expensive due to inflation. There's a Korean soup that I like in LA called Hambak Salontang. They sell Korean octopus soup, and it used to cost like $8 back in 2012, and now it's $18. So that's more than doubled in just 10 years. Ridiculous.
I think things generally have gotten more expensive, right? Like, I mean, personally, I'm a bubble tea fan, right? In the past, bubble tea I remember it to be around $3 plus, but now it's easily $4.50, right? So that's one example that I see in my everyday life.
Or McFlurry, it was $2 at first. I remember in primary school it was like $2, and now it's like 3 something, which is crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think food definitely was something that most of us feel the inflationary pressures from. Yeah.
Do you personally struggle to get by with your current salary living in Singapore?
No, not really, no.
How do you feel regarding the high costs?
I feel like very stressful. Need to work more job. So somehow it's very tiring.
Definitely, yeah. Especially when I don't really, I mean, I don't only make money for myself, for my children as well, for my aged parents as well. Just in case there's something that's going on, then, I have a sum of money for rainy days.
Yep, that's very wise. It's always good to have emergency money for rainy days.
How much do you think you need to make to live comfortably in Singapore without any worries?
I think like at least 7,500.
I would say if that kind that I would probably want to like go out, I can eat whatever I want, spend however I want, probably 20 to 30k a month would be good with every year if you're like rising costs, especially if I want to get a car or if I want to get a house, probably 20 to 30k, yeah, would be a good range.
If you're in Singapore, if you have a family, probably you need more than like 5k to live here, of course. And if, example, you're just alone like me, I think probably you just need like to live is like around $3,000 is too very much already for you. There's people who have $1,000 and they survive. So we never know. It depends on yourself. So on how you manage that money.
That's true to a certain extent because there are some people who make bare minimum and still manage to get by, but then there are people who make a shit ton of money and they're somehow still living paycheck to paycheck. So it really depends on the person.
I don't think you can survive $1,000 in Singapore because from what I heard, 1,000 is you can't really pay your expenses and your like rent. Yeah, so you really need like at least 5,000. And if you have a family also, like one of y'all should have like probably 5 grand each. So like both made up to probably like 10,000. Yeah.
This is too broad to say like what's comfortable, because more we earn, more we want to like more we spend usually, you know. So if you start earning like 15,000, you start spending more because you start to go to more nicer places. You start buying nicer goods, right? Then suddenly your salary increases to 30k, 50k. You're getting more and more and more. It's like you becoming more hungrier. Well, I mean that's the driving force of capitalism in the end.
Yep, that's exactly what I said just moments ago, right? The more money you make, the more things you'll want. That's just human nature.
Why do you think it's so expensive here compared to other Asian countries?
I guess it might have to do with the fact that our currency is a lot stronger. So I mean, Singaporeans' purchasing power is widely perceived as stronger. So naturally, I think things here ought to be, or they seem a little bit more expensive because Singaporeans sort of can afford it in that sense.
I think another reason is also because like Singapore is a very effective place. So a lot of businesses actually also would like to set up their business here.
Doing business in Singapore, it's easy, like starting a business, doing business, low corporate taxes. That's why quite many corporations having here.
Yeah, Singapore is efficient and taxes are low, so it's a great place to do business.
Are you worried about high prices increasing even more in the future? And have you ever considered moving somewhere cheaper to live?
Yes, of course. I think that's what most Singaporeans really think, whether really we can survive this very high cost of rising, whether the inflation really would catch up with your salary and all. I would say I obviously do consider like really moving overseas, probably in the next, when I retire, probably in the next like 20 years, we will retire somewhere that is really less stressful, less busy, less rising costs. Yeah, I think most Singaporeans probably look at either like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or sometimes like people want to probably also settle down in Thailand or Bali.
Girl, the places you just mentioned have high cost of living and high taxes. The grass ain't greener on the other side.
Yes, I do feel a little worried because I'm worried that by the time I'm old enough to settle down or buy my own house, it will be much more than what it's costing now. And I think that worries me because I might not be able to afford a house.
Oh, come on. People say that real estate prices back in the 1980s was this much. That was freaking 40 years ago. Do you think that 40 years from now things will get any better? Unlikely. And what do you think people 40 years from now would say? They will be like, hey, look at the real estate prices back in 2020s. That was so cheap, okay? It's like an infinite loop that will never end, trust me.
I can say for my friends also, if you ask them if they want to move out or not, I think definitely a lot of people want to move out of Singapore, between my friends and I. Whether or not we can, that's something else. Like we want to like go out of Singapore to work and then rent overseas. It just makes financially speaking, I think it makes more sense.
I definitely encourage more Singaporeans to go out of Singapore to live their life there and experience what it's like outside of Singapore so you get to appreciate Singapore more. I would much rather live rent-free with my parents in a country that is safe, with low crime rates, low taxes, great healthcare, great public transport, than in the US where taxes are really, really high. It's not worth it, with high crime rates too.
Not worried about Singapore to become the state of too expensive to live in, because Singapore has a very good record in economy-wise that yes, it's expensive, but it's still manageable. So I would say the Singapore government has been taking care very well for the past 20-30 years.
Anything else that you want to share with our overseas viewers or people that are not from Asia about the high living expenses in Singapore?
The grass is not always greener on the other side. But if you could make it in your own country, you don't have to leave your family for that. That would be very great and should be more appreciated for what you have.
Well, that's the end of my reaction video. To answer the question if all Singaporeans are rich, the answer is obviously no, like most countries, but Singaporeans do have a relatively high median net worth compared to a lot of other countries. And personally for me, I think I would need about like $12,000 to $15,000 a month Singapore dollars to live comfortably alone. Cost of living is high and salaries may not always keep up with inflation and the other rising costs. So if you're struggling to cope with the rising costs, the best way is to increase your financial literacy and explore different avenues to increase your income or even manage your finances better, right? And having an emergency fund is very important in times like this. And remember, being rich is not solely about monetary wealth. It can also include having a rich life in terms of relationships, experiences, and personal fulfillment. So don't chase wealth blindly. The most important thing is to have a balance between passion and money, okay? And if you like this content, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a new video. And let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And feel free to follow me on my Instagram. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time.